Herzlich willkommen. Ich freue mich, Sie hier in Berlin heute begrüßen zu dürfen. We really appreciate you joining us today, and we would like to take you to the journey, to the center of the mind, and tell more about the mobile moments. So before we will start with the main presentation, I would like to ask you, how many of you used the mobile phone in the last 15 minutes? Take your hands up. And how many of you used the mobile WhatsApp or Insta Messenger app on your mobile in the last 5 minutes?
There's a couple of you. You're admitting to it, which is good. Thank you.
So as you can see, everyone is connected, always connected. Everyone has a mobile phone. And actually, all people are in this digital complex world connected via mobile. So also our consumers, also young consumers, also respondents. So this has an impact also on market research industry. Market research industry has changed in the last almost 10 years. Digital research doubled. So in the major markets, and we done research with single sources. Now we are doing research with multiple sources. We had an online, and now we had a real-time method. So this has created a visible change and shift in the market research industry.
So effectively what we're seeing here, there's an evolution in terms of the digital touch points for marketers and researchers. I'll just take that, thank you. So, in the beginning, technology was very simple, was reaching a very small amount of the population, and we weren't really getting much out of it. Then technology got a little bit more advanced, reaching more people, and information started to become a little bit more complex for us, a bit more interesting for researchers and marketers. Now, in today's world, you can see it's just shot up. We have various types of gadgets and technology. I'm sure if you've read the description of the paper, I've written there 7.19 billion gadgets in the world. Now more than the population of the Earth right now. This is pretty amazing, this explosion that we've had. Now the interesting thing is this explosion also means there's so many new types of data which we can collect. And this is a very daunting and also exciting thing for marketers and researchers. So, as marketers and researchers, have we moved at the same pace as consumers with this big explosion of different gadgets and types of data? Do we have the right methods in place to capture consumer behavior in this digital world? And how can the market research industry cope with this evolution? We believe the answer is through real-time insights, which will allow you to basically merge together different approaches and also give context and relevance to the real behavior of consumers. And that's what we're here to talk to you about today. A very new and innovative approach which Borderless Access has actually put together. But before I go into that, I'd just like to give you an example. So we manage a community of over 3 million across 30 markets across the globe. And this is just an example of two here. So we've got Germany and India. Now, what I'm trying to say is to engage with consumers who are connected. Yes, they are connected, and they're connected across multiple devices. So you can say email, there's SMS, you can do push notifications, you can use apps, but ultimately what we're trying to say is to connect with consumers and to get the most out of them, you need to use a hybrid approach. So for example, if we've been doing that, we've seen almost double the amount of response rate from the consumers who are reaching out to. So we're basically saying the consumers are there, they're accessible, but you need to make sure your digital device which you're accessing them by is relevant to them and at the point of time of day which is also relevant to them as well. So this starts to get a little bit more exciting now. So what this means is, and as you've seen in the room here, with no one putting their phone down, everyone checking it every now and then, consumers are connected 24/7, right? Now, this is the first time, you could say in the last 5 years, that as researchers and marketers, we're going to be able to understand micro moments. So micro moments being moments in the day where your brand or your messaging is the most relevant for them. What is the key moment where you're going to get the best return on investment? And also micro segments. That consumer is changing throughout the day. In the morning, there might be one segment. In the evening, something else happens in a different environment, and they're a different kind of consumer. How would you reach them, and what is relevant for them at that point in time? If we have the right methods in place, and the right innovation in place, and it's adopted by marketers and researchers, together we can make this change possible and understand those consumers better. So before I go into our case study and explain what it is I'm getting at and what our approach is, I'd like to bring your attention to a book called The Culture Map, written by Erin Meyer. And she basically put together 8 different points where she believed different cultures would interact and how they behaved. And she's actually put together a map as well, which I will show to you. She has identified nations by confrontational and those that avoid confrontation, and those which are more expressive and those which are less expressive. So you may agree with this or not agree with this, but this is what she said and what we're working towards. Now, for our case study, what we decided to do was see, look, can this be applied to two markets or two cultures which are completely opposed? So we have done, obviously, Germany and India, which are on two opposite sides of the scale there. And in this actual case study, we're going to be introducing you to the hybrid methodology, TAP. So TAP basically utilizes passive metering technology and consumer survey data to give you a 360-degree understanding of the consumer. Now, I was really excited to hear Zalando speak, because they're onto this. They're doing this. They're taking passive metering data. They're using consumer surveys, and they're getting really relevant insight, real-time insight into their consumers. It's fantastic to see that brands are already picking up on the importance of this. And what we're trying to say is, please continue to do that, and it's very relevant. And there is now also a methodology there which will allow you to gain that insight. So for this case study, we thought we'd look at the automotive industry and understand what the path to purchase is from India and Germany. Two totally different cultures, totally different ways of thinking, and see, do they ultimately go through the same processes? How do they choose which car they're going to get? And what are the issues that they face? So we did this by targeting males and females from 18 to 55 years old. We wanted people who were intending to buy a car or had bought a car in the last 1 month. And what we did, we had them passively metered, but then we utilized a portion of the TAP methodology, which actually takes advantage of instant messenger technology. So through our passive metering information, which we have across the 3 million community, we know that only 7 apps are used on a mobile phone. And of that, the number 1 app, can anyone guess what it is? No, not Facebook. Come on, don't be shy. WhatsApp, yes, very good, WhatsApp. But in China, it wouldn't be WhatsApp, it would be WeChat. So you have to use the relevant application. But in this scenario, in India and in Germany, WhatsApp was the preferred method. So please have a look at the following video, and then I'll hand it to my colleague, Patricia.
Why WhatsApp? With the simple and easy functionalities of WhatsApp, it is the perfect way for participants to provide more insightful feedback while they are right in the midst of a task, whether it's using a new gadget or out shopping at the supermarket. Here's how it works. First, the key business question is identified. Next, a virtual focus group is established by creating a WhatsApp group with eligible pre-profiled participants. The moderator sets the context by explaining the purpose and establishes ground rules. The group is then engaged to gain feedback on products, services, or concept ideas, with people responding in the form of text, pictures, and videos. The vast and varied information collected is then fused with our machine learning algorithms, empowering you to efficiently develop content for your business needs.
Yeah. So we did this case study into 2 countries, and our findings were amazing. So we collected huge amount of insights from our respondents. They posted pictures, text messages to us. They shared with us opinions, thoughts, and it was also nice to see how the culture here have their own role, because like Eric Meyer said in the culture map, German are less expressive than the Indian respondents, and we can also see that in Germany people posted one picture per respondent per day, and in Indian it was a free pictures per day, and also they posted in Indian double more text messages to us than in Germany.
So what we actually did in the WhatsApp group is we set an agenda. You know, the kind of questions you can make it relevant according to whatever the issue is, but we wanted to specifically find out, in this era of connected cars and this big hype and increase on electric cars and going green, across these two markets, an emerging market and developed market, what were people's thoughts on going electrical? So we effectively asked, this was probably the most key finding that we want to show you. We asked in Germany and India, would you go electrical, basically? And in Germany, 16% said they would, and 22% in India said they would, more than Germany. But when we actually compared that claimed data to the actual data, because we had passive metering, we were seeing how they were searching, what their actions truly were, we found a massive difference. So the Germans, what they claimed and what they actually intended to do was much more similar, right? But in India, it was half the amount. So there's a massive there was a massive overclaim in India to what they aspired to do or what they wanted to do, as opposed to who would actually convert to becoming an electric car user for whatever reason. And that was very, very interesting, and we want to share that with you.
Yeah, this case study gave us also better understanding of geo movement in those two countries. So we know that the Germans travel more than in India. They also visit in different places apart from work and home. And we know that the Germans travel longer distance, so they prefer to buy the sedan or SUV car. And in India, they travel to social public places, and the issue is parking and traffic, so they would prefer to buy the compact car.
So what we also noticed, when it comes to buying a car, it's a big deal, right? It's not something you just go and pick off the shelf. So we wanted to understand, how do they go about considering, what is the search process for them? And what we were able to understand from the meter data was both markets were actually really similar. So they would search digitally throughout the week. You can see the days of the week. There's certain days that are more popular than others in markets. And then they would actually go to the dealership, mostly on the weekends. Now, as marketers, or maybe an automotive company, this is really good information, because now you know when to target and message that actual individual who is searching for a car, when to send relevant information to them to get a bigger conversion, how to get your car into the consideration zone with that particular consumer. And also you get to understand traffic about dealerships. How many staff should you have in your dealerships, and how long should you keep them open for? If you're seeing that Saturdays are probably more busier in Germany and Sundays are more busier in India, perhaps you need to change accordingly to cater for that target. So effectively what you're seeing is online behavior is actually depicting offline movements as well. And this is really important. And if we start to use multi-methods to bring this together, you're able to get much more richer and tangible insights.
Yeah, we learned also more based on this study about the path to purchase. So in Germany, there is a 3 steps purchase. So the German respondents, they do their online research, they compare online cars, they visit a car website, and then before they make the final decision, they visit the dealer to check the prices, finance options, services. And in India, this process is longer. It has 5 steps. Indian they are more trendy. They are looking for trendy cars. and they speak with family, they speak with friends, and then they go online and compare the cars. But before they make the final decision to buy the new car, they share all insight with their family, and they make the decision in consulting with the family and friends. And that was the main finding of this study. Let's talk about a consideration because it's also that there are differences between these countries. So in Germany, the respondents explored less cars at the beginning of this whole process. So it was four cars compared to in India 7 cars. And then in the next step, they considered 2 cars, and in India it was 4 cars before they decide to buy the final one. So we can see that the culture also has an impact on the path of purchase in those 2 countries. Yeah.
So ultimately, to summarize, we actually found that the German path to purchase was much more linear, was much more slicker process, 3 main areas. But the Indian one was far more complicated, far more variables there. And also, when it came to influencers to make those decisions, for the German market, it was very much so online and reviews and actual factual information which would determine which car they go for. Also, they kind of already knew this is a smaller subset of what we're going to go for. So I would say, they're much more efficient shoppers, let's say. But when it came to the Indian market, it was a mixture of online reviews and, as Prisha mentioned, family. Really understanding what is the trend, what is the cool thing out there, what's going to make me have status. And that is a really big thing there. So I'm Indian, so I'm allowed to say, but there is that whole stereotype of having, haggling and getting a bargain, and that was really there. Like, they'd go to lots of different showrooms to make sure that they get the best bargain and that they got the best deal for that investment as well. So that was really insightful. So ultimately, when it came to the methodology, the TAP methodology which we used, it did reflect the cultural map. So we saw the Germans were less expressive, but they still gave us really good insights. They still were active in terms of at least 1 media message per day and 5 text posts a day, which is pretty good. But the Indian market was far more in terms of willing to share pictures and much more text messages. So that was interesting to see that the cultures also varied in the way they engaged with technology digitally. And for an emerging market to really embrace mobile and that innovation and to be willing to engage with you in that way is fantastic. So ultimately, we believe that this kind of innovation is going to make a big impact to the industry. So ultimately, we need to make sure that we're exploring real behavior and doing this through innovative methods. We're opening our horizons and not just using one method. You have to use a hybrid method, and that's why we've come up with this solution. We believe it's going to be much more efficient, and also it's going to help you to club together different digital markets. 80% of the millennial generation now sits in the emerging markets. As end clients, that is a massive opportunity for you, a massive client base for you to tap into. And mobile, of course, has leapfrogged over there. So these kind of methodologies are going to help you gain that market share and get a better understanding. So thus, we believe this will help you generate deeper insights and actually have actionable decision-making for you and your clients as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time.
Again, lots of questions have been posted. That's good.
Yay.
Some of them you'll have to answer offline. We can't go through all of them. What came up a few times is what you talked about earlier, micro moments and micro segments. Mm-hmm. And maybe linking back to your last point about actionable decisions. Can you give us an example, maybe just one, of where you've taken those micro moments or micro segments and actually a client of yours has put it into practice?
So yes. It could be effectively used across any sort of end client. Maybe you could use FMCG, for example, or an electrical company, and they want to understand when is the right moment to do that, to send the message, For that, it could be something very specific that you're only going to use once in a day, right? This product is not relevant for you all the time. So there's no point sending, maybe it's a product that is used throughout the day, but you can't really predict when it's going to be used. This sort of methodology allows you to understand the factors which can identify those hidden micro moments where you're more likely to pay attention to that advertising and get a return on investment. There is some work that we've done, but I can't really give names. But yeah, effectively it will allow you to really get better value for money on your marketing. And I can give you more information if you come to our booth, which is just outside.
John and Olivia, thank you very much.
No worries, thank you, sir.